have found us. More podcast, where we want you to know God more deeply, find lasting freedom, discover your destiny and make an eternal difference. Now.
Well, you made it to more podcast where we give you the weather report on the hour, every half hour, and every 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's snow right now. Yeah, we are just bombasted by snow. Mm-hmm. PG's been snow blowing for, 4 hours?
4 hours this morning.
4 hours this morning, and I don't really care. I just turn on the four-wheel drive and just blow through it. They try to plow me in all the time. Uh-huh. Although I will say, shout out to my plow guys. They actually plowed up my mailbox. Normally they plow it in.
Yep.
We have to get over, Mount Sinai to get to it, get to my mail. They actually plowed it out. So it's good. I appreciate it, whoever that is. But I try to take care of those guys. Christmas I put a little envelope of money out of my garbage can or whatever. Yeah. So I try to take care of them as much as I can. The plow guy, I don't know who he is, but he's been nice to me this year.
Is that what is that, Tappahannock County?
Yeah, well, Charlevoix County. And so Sheboygan. Yeah, Sheboygan County comes out there, and they on our road they just crank it and go fast, and then start plowing snow, and wherever it goes, it goes. Right. So if you're plowed in, you're plowed in. Sure. But yeah, I don't really care. Well, do you wonder why you listen to the More podcast every week? I'll tell you why. More stands for maximizing opportunities for right now and eternity, and just don't stop listening. Today's podcast is sponsored by, tired of what do you want to eat debate that happens all the time? Well, meet the date night food decider dice, the hero your relationship deserves. Roll for pizza or sushi, tacos, or even rock, paper, scissors for dessert. Say goodbye to endless, I don't know what I want to do. Have you ever had that before? You're going on. My wife is notorious for this. We go out to eat and we're like, what do you want to eat? I don't know. What do you want to eat? And it's an ongoing
and then you give a suggestion.
And then it's we just ate there. I don't want to eat there. Yeah. No. Well, you can get rid of those arguments. One roll, instant decision. Plus, it's way cheaper than couples therapy. So roll the dice and roll into culinary harmony. The date night food decider dice, saving date nights one meal at a time, because I don't care is not on the menu. Order now. Satisfaction is not guaranteed, but at least it's fun. $15.29 on Amazon.
That's a good idea.
I think that'd be a great gift, a white elephant gift for our party, right?
Yeah.
If you got somebody in your life that you know that they have this problem, maybe this should be part of marriage counseling.
Sure.
When they come in and say, okay, here.
How do you fix?
We're going to talk about your marriage issues, but then here's some food dice deciders for you. That'd be one thing to alleviate your life. Well, Pastor Gary, you're back. You got deer.
Yep, got a deer. It was really wonderful.
You got a deer.
I actually, God bless me, I got 2 deer in 6 days.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's better than normal for you. I mean, you normally have to wait a while to get one.
Spread over 2 states, though. So I didn't
2 states?
Yeah. I got one in Ohio, which was a wonderful gift from the Lord on that one.
Yeah.
And then the one on Saturday here in Michigan.
Yeah.
Which
was good.
Really exciting.
Has anybody contacted you from a loan yet? Because I did submit your name. So
for what?
For a loan.
Alone, the TV show.
The TV show?
Oh, Alone.
Yeah. Alone.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, I would go in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Would you really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
That'd be
fun. You
fun.
think you'd make it?
I've watched all the episodes, all 10 seasons.
Yeah.
And, they always have a different strategy. The last guy is the guy that refused to make a fire that kept going the entire time. He trained himself just to stay warm. Yeah. And then at a certain point, he just fasted his way to the end.
No way.
Really?
He stayed in his sleeping bag and fasted his way to the
just
end
didn't
and
move.
won.
And he won.
Oh.
How many days was he out there?
How many?
I don't know if he was somewhere in the 70s, 80s.
Oh, my gosh. That's a long time.
You're not burning calories.
Right.
You just stay in the sleeping bag, huh?
Yeah,
You
he
just
trained
don't move.
He trained himself to stay warm and not eat.
What a
That's
way.
crazy.
What a way for 70 days.
He's out of, so there's always 10 people per season.
Yeah.
And this is the 10th season. So there's 100 people that have been on the show. He's the first person never to maintain a fire the entire time.
Really?
He didn't waste any of his energy. Didn't waste any of his energy on the fire.
Well, you've got,
that's a smart guy. He was probably sitting there doing his research of, all right, what is the failure point?
So, most players, after the first couple of seasons, they would pack on as much weight as they could as they were getting ready to go onto the show.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen some pretty fat guys turn to skeletons
60
by the time.
pounds, gaining 60 pounds to go on the show.
They gain it and then they lose it all, and they're like skeletons when they leave.
I think it'd be more the psychological thing. Like
when
I've watched it,
totally what it is.
Right, like you miss people. You're not talking to anyone other than the camera.
That's why you get a Wilson.
Wild.
You bring a Wilson with you,
Yep.
and you make him your friend.
Just an automatic. Yeah, start doing that before you leave, so he's an actual friend.
Yeah, right.
You don't have to work on the relationship.
Right, it's already there.
You're already a crazy person.
Yeah, I mean, I would do something like that. I mean, I don't really have. I mean, being an introvert that I am, I think I could go for quite a while
I don't think you could.
before I go nuts.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
The food part's the problem. I would have to really do a lot of research to figure out what to eat because I don't really do that now. So I would be like,
You're the guy with the food dice.
yeah, I'd be the food dice. What are we gonna eat today? Mushrooms
Wigs,
or what?
Leaves,
What is
seawater.
it? Oh my gosh! And then fishing would be fun for me too.
Yeah,
I don't. I'm not good at that either. The one episode I watched was this guy that made his own bow and arrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny.
Some
because
guy shot an elk, didn't he? Or a big moose
we've had
or something.
a muskox and a moose.
A moose, yeah.
I would think that moose would go a long time.
Yeah, but the animals got to it. And
Oh, I remember that. Yeah. He put it up on a big, and then climbed.
But the guy that made his bow, he was like, big talker in the beginning, right? You know, like I've been out for quite a while before and living off the land, and then when his bow broke, he starts crying.
Oh no!
I was watching that show with Amy, and I'm like, man, he's broke. He's broke now. Yeah, he lost his bow.
So
he's
one
broke.
of my favorites. So they had this lady on there who was, she got like third, and she only got pulled because she had lost too much weight.
Oh,
and so they brought her back for a reunion series.
Yeah.
And she was doing great. The first time she never caught a fish. This time she caught a fish. She was so excited. The hook went. It got loose. Like on her first
her
fish,
hand.
she caught the hook got loose and went and dug into one of the tendons, and they're showing it, and she's got pliers and she can't get it out.
Ah man!
So she had to get pulled
again.
But she had the mentality and the skill level to win.
She could have made it all the way.
Wasn't there a guy from East Jordan on the show?
Yeah.
So
And
what
I
would
think
be
he
your?
may have won.
I
I
don't
think he
know.
did really good though.
Yeah. All right, Northern Michigan.
We had a guy.
There's a guy from
Sheboygan.
Kentwood,
Grand
Grand Rapids won.
area.
He was a pastor.
Oh really?
Yeah.
So that's cool.
There's a guy from Sheboygan that was on Survivor that we were watching, and we were watching him.
Yeah.
He made it pretty far.
Huh.
So yeah, Northern
What would-
Michiganders, we know how to make it.
That's right.
We
What
can
would be
survive.
the items you would bring, PG? You get 3, right?
Yeah, the saw is definitely like a super, super important
Okay.
one. The rope that they take apart and make a gill net out of, also super
that's a good
important.
idea,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so there's a couple things in there that you wouldn't think are important, but they
Sleeping bag?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that included, or you have to bring that's considered an extra item?
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But
Well, you'll know
I
as soon
just
as they
watched-
call you.
I just watched this show called The Outdoor Boys. This dad took his 4-year-old camping in Alaska.
Yeah.
Minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit.
Uh-uh.
Yeah, minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit. They had a sleeping bag that was good to minus 60. I would take one
What?
of those. Yeah.
That'd be good.
Man.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a
I didn't know.
thing.
Yeah, I mean, where do you got to get that from? The
You got to get
government?
your face under there too, though. At night.
Oh, yeah, it was like you were
60.
totally in it.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Wow.
could, well, that'd keep you warm. Yeah. I don't know. There's a new show that's coming on HBO about how people are living in the North Pole.
Yeah.
In one of those little abandoned NASA places.
Oh yeah.
And so they got like 4 or 5 people that live in that house.
Ooh, man.
And the whole point is that basically they are just kind of like losing their mind. You know,
Sure.
it's like you can't go outside because you'll freeze to death.
So Pete.
So you got to live in that room. And so it's
Yeah.
kind of like a mix between Survivor, Alone, kind of thing.
Yep.
And they got food. I mean, it's not like they're without food, but it's really kind of a social game.
Yeah.
And do you want to kill me, or how long will it take before you want to try to kill me? Well, anyways, so the only man sitting across from the table from me, back from the Great North, the only guy I know who can parallel park a boat on land, Pastor Gary. He's back.
I went to this place in Minnesota, right on the Mississippi area, and you could drive downtown, and people had parallel parked their boats.
Are you kidding me?
trucks
Oh, really?
Downtown, and people were riding 4-wheelers everywhere. My grandsons thought they were in heaven.
Yeah. Right.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. So the only man who knows exactly how to catch a squirrel, you climb in a tree and you act like a nut. Pastor Alex.
Awesome. I love it. The only man I know who once had a staring contest with himself in a mirror, He's the reigning champ because the mirror always blinks first. Pastor Ted.
There you go.
Well, next up, if you're wondering what we're going to do on this show, coming up next on the More Podcast, we dive into the hard-hitting questions that you didn't know you needed to answer to. First one that I think we're going to get into is cereal technically a soup? Ted says yes. Alex says no, and Gary's bringing a PowerPoint to prove everyone wrong. We're also going to get into groundbreaking expose on why Michigan's potholes might secretly be portals to other dimensions.
Ooh,
that sounds fun. That sounds like a corner talk there. Yeah. So all that plus Pastor Gary's epic rant about why pineapple doesn't belong on pizza, and Alex's shocking confession about never seeing Home Alone 3. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
More Podcast, wishing you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
So, have you guys got everything ready for Christmas?
No.
Big question. I mean, it's coming up here.
No, I don't.
I'm feeling pretty good.
You're feeling pretty good?
Yep.
I think I'm pretty good. I just need to ask my wife.
Yeah.
We'll see what we bought for grandkids, or not grandkids, but nephews and stuff. Yeah, we've got Carson back.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Carson's back from Japan, and he's hanging out with us for a little bit.
Okay.
Because he's going to be planning on heading out to Turkey.
Sweet.
Will he be here through Christmas then?
It looks like it. As far as I know right now.
I might have a project for him.
Yep.
The one I sent you last night.
Okay.
Yeah. Give him a call. I mean, the boy, he's hanging out at the house and doing odd jobs, and he's going to help us get the
I will get a hold of him.
studio together.
Sweet.
Podcast studio.
Awesome, man.
He was in there yesterday looking at it because we have painters coming on Saturday, and then he is going to come in and hook it up because I started looking at what I needed to do, and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm talking about. So I said,
He's the guy.
Carson's back, yeah. So he's going to help us hook everything up and get it ready. So Christmas is one of those times of the year where you have to pretend like you really love everybody, and then also buy them gifts that you know that they don't want, but you're going to get them to them anyways. It's a great time, and I enjoy it. But the funny part is this year, when we're buying gifts, my wife usually wants to wrap everything, put it on a tree. We haven't put our tree up yet. We haven't wrapped one gift, but we have been giving each other our Christmas gifts since they've been coming in. So as soon as they come in from Amazon or wherever they're getting ordered from, they're like, "Hey, Merry Christmas! Here you go." So this has been our Christmas. We're not going to probably unwrap anything.
Carson will be the only guy unwrapping anything.
He has not either. We've given it to him.
Okay.
We put it on his bed and we're like, "Here, Merry Christmas." The other day I was watching a TV show and they're talking about how they have these new bags that have the strings on the top. You just tie it up.
Yep.
I'm like, where was that 10 years ago?
It's kind of a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's stop spending money on paper, and it's a big waste.
And the tape and all that stuff. Yeah, I just don't want to do
So
it.
you're wrapping your gifts in a
bag,
in a
reusable
drawstring bag.
That's what I want to do, yeah. But I haven't had time to do it because we just give them the gift.
Okay.
Now I think the only thing we're going to wrap is probably the nephew's gifts. And
I know a man invented this idea right here.
Yeah.
It was probably
I think it's a good idea.
It's genius.
I have some friends that do that.
Do you wrap your gifts?
I try to have other people wrap my gifts. And then, I attempt to wrap my gifts.
Well, Amazon used to do like you could order something for Christmas and say, "Do you want to wrap it?" It was for free. Now they're charging.
Are they?
So they charge for everything. I think one thing I was looking at to get wrapped was like $10.
Yeah, that's not fair.
It's not.
$10.
It's not good. Yeah. Okay, so I got to talk about this deer thing, Pastor Gary. So how many points is this deer thing that you got? The antlers on this deer. Is it like award winning? I mean, because every year you give us the rundown.
Yeah. Okay, so the buck in Ohio was a 10-point.
Yes.
And that was just kind of like medium size.
Okay.
But the buck that I got here in Michigan was an 8-point, but he was a older deer.
Okay.
So he had really thick antlers, and he was definitely a Northern Michigan trophy.
Really?
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
He's already on the wall in the office.
Yeah, I've seen. Yeah, you got him in the wall. It was interesting. I was listening to our wonderful governor, and they're talking about doing some work on the herds so that they can grow a little older.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What's your thoughts on that?
100% do
100% do it.
Yeah. So Northern Michigan a number of years ago went to a point restriction, so it has to have 3 points on one side before you can shoot it, and that has helped us get bigger bucks. So we're not shooting spike horns anymore.
Right. Yeah.
We'll wait until they're 6 points or 8 points. Hopefully, I wish we went to the 4 on a side, and then we would all be northern Michigan be a destination hunting
for hunting in general. Yeah. Well, is it possible though? Because I mean, they're not corn fed. I mean, they're not like the ones you find in Ohio.
Yeah. I mean, they're always going to be a little bit smaller than some of those places, but they're way better than it used to be.
Yeah.
So my brother-in-law, who's a big hunter from downstate, they don't have the point restriction, and so people are still shooting smaller ones, and so he's primed to shoot something great.
Yeah.
But they just keep shooting the small ones.
Oh, really? Yeah. That's what's there. I know. Somebody was posting on Facebook. They have not gotten a buck for like 3 or 4 seasons. Mm-hmm. They get does all the time, and so I'm like, as a deer hunter, as you're posting that, you're thinking to yourself, So I've accomplished a lot this year. I've
written to the DNR director.
Yeah.
About some ideas that I've had to help things out.
Yeah.
It's shoot a doe, earn a buck. So if you shoot a doe, then you're allowed to shoot a second buck instead of right now you can just buy a second buck tag.
Oh, yeah.
So why not earn it?
Yeah.
Earn a buck.
Yeah. I like
right?
that. Yeah.
So by shooting a doe. So doe and buck, the whole play on words there.
I like that. Yeah. And have they called you back on that?
No.
Well, see, just give it time. Give it time.
I had it all.
So is there
basically I had a PowerPoint presentation?
I like that.
Yeah. Is the problem not big enough deer or too many deer or too little deer?
They're going to say there are too many deer.
Uh-huh.
And that's why we have all of the insurance companies lobbying against,
see.
like clear the herd,
Yes.
because of deer auto accidents.
Right.
We don't have too many deer, and if you go to the UP, they don't have any deer left because the wolves have eaten them all.
Yeah.
So, but for the average guy here, we would rather have a little less deer but bigger quality bucks.
Yeah. Be careful because I was a couple years ago. We had a wolf in the Toppinabee area, and we didn't know. The DNR let us know that there was a wolf walking around, but apparently when the ice bridge forms, they come down here to hunt.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We were coming home.
That's a trek, right?
Yeah. It is. But I mean, when you're
and they
hungry,
know how to. Yeah. Right.
So we were driving into town, and I saw this dog go across the street, the road. I'm like, that's bigger than a normal dog. It looked like a husky, but it was brown and had black, and it was just super tall. And I'm like, that is weird. And so I talked to Chelsea's husband, Matt, and I'm like, is it possible maybe we get wolves down here? And he's like, yeah, when the land bridge forms, it's very possible for them to come down that far. Yeah, to come down. So they might be coming down this way, and the deer that we're hoping to have on this end might be part of their menu. I don't know. Well, we'll come right back. We got an interesting segment. We're going to be talking about the new Dietrich Bonhoeffer movie.
Yeah.
Pastor Ted and I and Pastor Amy, we all went and did a little film review.
Yeah.
It was pretty good. We'll get into that.
I think it was great. Yeah.
I thought it was a good movie. It was one of the few movies that my wife doesn't fall asleep in. I was really surprised. We were sitting there. I'm waiting for the snores to start.
Yeah.
And she stayed up the whole time. I'm like, this is money well spent.
Yeah.
Usually you have to say, Amy, wake up. You're snoring. Nothing. It was good. We'll be right back.
We have abducted Santa. Jesus wants his holiday back. This is More Podcast.
Well, in our movie and popcorn segment, I didn't really have a cool name for it, so I was calling that.
No, that's fine.
The new Dietrich Bonhoeffer movie explores that we watched the incredible life and faith of a German theologian and pastor who stood against the Nazi regime during World War II. The film delves into Bonhoeffer's moral and spiritual journey from his early days as a passionate preacher to his role in the resistance against Adolf Hitler. It highlights his theology of costly grace, his involvement in the conspiracy to assassinate Hitler, and his ultimate imprisonment and martyrdom. Through powerful storytelling, the movie captures Bonhoeffer's unwavering courage, his deep faith, and his belief that following Christ often requires sacrifice. And we definitely saw that. I think the only thing, it was a great movie.
Yep.
I loved it.
Yep.
I think the only thing I would say is that it was a little slow. I could have used a little more shooting.
Sure.
A little more fighting.
Carson said after he came out, too, because he went with us, too. He's like, I think that was the least violent World War II movie I've ever seen.
I know, yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and they did a good job. It's from Angel Studios, so they're not going to get into all that. But
I do think I was on the less important side of does it look good and does the acting good? I think they did a good job. I think some of his mom was a little, like, her acting wasn't the best, but I think for the most part, Bonhoeffer played right.
Pretty good, yeah.
His overseer, the guy who was like in his boss, and when he was a pastor, he was really good.
Big actor. There's a few big actors in there. The guy that was his brother-in-law was on Pitch Perfect.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was one of the Germans that was in competition with Pitch Perfect. If you've ever watched those, I have never watched those movies, so I don't know. I just heard from a great,
But it was shot really well. Like it looked nice, and I think it was really good. I do think you're right in that it felt slow. I think because Bonhoeffer has so many good statements.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Where you kind of got to sit on it for a minute, and it's lots of talking, right? It is lots of ethical dilemma between do we stick it out with the state church or do we go with this confessing church and give up the German church, what I mean, to this party. You
mentioned, I think when we were leaving, that he wrote, what, 30
Bonhoeffer
books?
Wrote 34 books over the course of 12 years, and he was being chased by the Nazis the entire time. And 2 of those books are Life Together and The Cost of Discipleship,
which are some
like
big ones. Yeah.
Those are like Bible College 101, right? You're gonna read.
You have to read that.
Unbelievable. Like just to be hunted.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
and
I'm
you're
gonna
writing,
go read and write and.
I was like, when you said that, I'm like, how the heck do you find time?
Well,
when you're
I'm
hiding.
like, man, I got a little headache in the morning. I'm like, I'm not going. I'm gonna stay in bed.
I don't feel like writing today. He's writing and stuff.
Bonhoeffer's getting chased by Hitler and crew. And writing like crazy.
I think what overall, before we start getting some of the questions that we want to talk about, I think it's so interesting how they really portrayed a parallel from what was happening then to now.
Yeah,
and how easy it is for people that are just religious to buy into a political nationality in their religion as opposed to those that really believe in Jesus Christ. And I think that was one of the things highlighted over and over and over again. And it's something that I think we got to be careful of, in our own government, in our own country, that can easily move in there.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're not talking about people that were dumb and unintelligent.
Sure.
We're talking about people that were very intelligent, that understood so much about it, but somehow nationalism got in there.
Yeah.
And I mean, like in the movie, they were showing Nazis showing up for church on Sunday, and it's just, I don't know. I saw the parallel is just super obvious. Yeah.
One of the things that was really shocking to me. So the movie's based on the book by Eric Matexas, who did Letters to American Church, and so it's Prophet, Martyr, Spy, Bonhoeffer. That's the book. But when I read that, one of the things that really stood out to me that I'd never realized before was in Germany in that day, to be a theologian or to be a pastor was almost like just being a doctor or a lawyer. That there really wasn't this sense of like you have a personal relationship with Jesus and you're growing in your faith. And there's this, it really was an academic pursuit of theology is something. And so I don't know that the movie did a great job of portraying it, but in the book, Matexas talks about how there would be people in seminary who, again, talk about a parallel, who didn't even believe in the divinity of Jesus.
Right.
They didn't even necessarily believe Jesus was an actual human. Right. And certainly a historical figure, So certainly that there's some parallels for us today in thinking about that. But the thing the movie I think did really well was when Bonhoeffer went to Union, which is one of the most liberal seminaries in America, in New York City, he met an African-American guy who took him to his full gospel, they weren't Pentecostals, they were Baptists.
Yeah,
so
Baptists,
they went to the Baptist churches.
But a black Baptist.
Yeah,
Black Baptist,
it's pretty much there, right?
Yeah.
So, and he goes, they're sitting at the table. Remember the scene? He's sitting with all the pastor and his family, and the pastor talks about how he, at one point in his life, he didn't know the Lord. And Bonhoeffer kind of scratches his head at that. Like, what do you mean you didn't know the Lord? Of course you always do. Or what is it to know him, really? And the pastor really kind of just lays out this simple gospel proclamation of I was once lost and now I'm found. And that was the big movement for Bonhoeffer to go back to Germany as really a Christian for the first time in his life. It wasn't that he didn't know God, he didn't know about God, he didn't know God personally. And so I think the movie did a good job with that, because that's, for me, again, the first time I heard that, I was like, wait, what? You would go to seminary and not even necessarily believe that the Bible is the inherent word of God, or that Jesus is the incarnation of the Father. All the stuff that we kind of hold to today.
Well, yeah, when it becomes an occupational thing. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I was in seminary, I mean, there are times where I would have conversations with people. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I want to have a full experience of understanding who Christ is, and they just want to know the facts, figures.
Yeah.
And that's all they're looking for.
Right. It's more of a religious exercise And
I can see how that happens. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, I guess, on this side of everything, how that's even possible, but it is possible. I mean, Jesus dealt with those people, the Pharisees and Sanhedrin. I mean, they knew so much about the word, and yet they did not know the word standing in front of them. So, some of the things that come out of this, some of the ethical dilemmas that the movie puts out there is, Dietrich Bonhoeffer had to reconcile his involvement with this conspiracy against Hitler, and there's a lot of that conversation happening there, where he, even his family was asking him, like, how could you, could you do this?
Right. So at first, so there's two factions within the church, right? In Germany, there's the German church and the confessing church, and so the German church was this group that it was taken over by the Third Reich, and so eventually Hitler took out any religious icons, so all the statues, any crucifix, and then eventually Bibles, and he replaced the Bible with Mein Kampf, and the movie does a good job at that. It shows that in this state church for thousands of years, now there's a swastika behind the pulpit,
right?
And this. Obviously, there was inconsistencies there, and so German or European Christians who were following, the Bible and Jesus, began to go, hey, this doesn't, mesh with us, and so they started the confessing church. So all that to be said, Luther started out more as I want to be a kindling to the fire of the true church of Europe.
Yeah.
And when he finally came to this place of like, Hitler must be stopped at all costs.
Yeah.
And so that's where that switch that we're talking about now of like, how did he make a decision now? He was an avid pacifist. He didn't believe in violence.
Yep.
So now, how do you make that switch to, I just want to kindle the fire of the church to speak out against the persecution of the Jews, to, no, we need to kill this man.
And he actually,
remove him.
And he talks about this idea of having two evils, right? Mm-hmm. And the one line that really got me was he's talking about, that there are moments when, like, David's have to come after the giant.
Yeah.
And I thought that was such a powerful quote in the movie that, that sometimes God does require us to take out the giant.
Yep.
And, you can't just stand on the side. And what a giant. And what a giant. And sometimes that, God does enable us and call us to do that too, as well as anything else. And I liked the assumption in that conversation is that, are you going to stand on the sidelines like the Israelites were doing because they didn't want to battle the giant, right? Or are you going to be the David that's going to go out there and confront it? And I think that's a hard place to come to as far as your own personal Christian journey or thought life, because I mean you don't want to be in that position.
Yep.
But at the same time you realize that somebody has to be.
Right.
Somebody has to be in that position.
Right.
Somebody has to take that role.
Yeah, and one of the quotes that I won't get perfect, but so it's Bonhoeffer's overseer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he eventually comes around and comes to the confessing side of the church. But he kept talking to Bonhoeffer, like, quit stirring the pot here.
Right.
Like, just this isn't one of the lines was, religion and politics don't need to mix.
I know, I heard that. I'm like, what?
Oh, boy. And eventually he comes to the place of saying, when they came for the Jews, I said nothing because I wasn't a Jew.
Yeah.
And he said, and when they came from the socialists and the communists, I didn't say anything because I wasn't I wasn't that. But what will happen when they come for the Christian? Because I said nothing before.
Yeah.
So the call to the church was, hey, you need to speak up for those who aren't necessarily just in your camp.
Right.
And that was a powerful one for sure.
That was so powerful. And, the interesting thing was when he went to England, I didn't know a lot about that part because I've only read, I told you I read Temptation and I read a couple other ones that he'd done, obviously the ones that we mentioned earlier. But, he went there, the argument that he was having with the church, like, just because they're not here does not mean that you should not be involved because they're still believers in Christ. And I think that was such a crucial, for me, a dialogue that happened in the movie because, so often when we are dealing with these kind of evils in the world, it's kind of like, it's not happening here. Yep. So do I really need to get involved?
Right.
And, that movie kind of, encourages us to think differently about that. Like, just
it
because.
Challenges me.
Yeah, it challenged me the whole time.
For sure.
So the big question, obviously, that people have when they talk about Bonhoeffer is, do you think that our faith sometimes requires us to go against injustice and to even break the laws? What do you think about that?
Boy.
It's a big one. It's a big one.
Yeah, our kingdom is not of this world.
Right.
Right?
I think it's a good answer.
Yeah. And so, and also Jesus calls us, to know and honor our leaders, right? And so there is this balance, I think, that we play. And I think in a space where Bonhoeffer exists, that is highlighted even more. He's regularly seeing people he knows, right, in his neighborhood who are being removed from their families and homes and sent to prison camps and eventually dying because they were just ethnically different.
Yeah.
So I think certainly in that case, but I do think there's a wrestling for sure for me of
where that line is.
Yeah. Well, and am I strong enough?
Right.
Because man, I watched that and I go, this guy, he had some stones, right? Like this guy was. Yeah. He stood in the face of just knowing he's gonna get arrested. He's gonna get arrested.
And it could end in him being executed. I think the part that really kind of helped me understand the balance that he was dealing with and eventually he got was at the end when he has that one soldier. Yeah. That really started buying into his message. Yep. But so
there's a Nazi soldier.
There's a Nazi soldier,
at the end of his life, yeah.
And the whole thing was that there were times when the jail was bombed and they were able to leave, and he's like, "Don't go," and it was kind of like a Paul and Silas moment. But they were getting ready to leave, and I thought it was interesting that his balance was I'm not here to kill Germans and Nazis. Yeah. I want them to understand what they're doing is evil and wrong. Sure. And I thought that was kind of an interesting thing because I think that's the mindset that we're really trying to get here, right? Yeah. It's not the issue of they don't do what I like them to do. They're opposed to me, so we're just going to take them out. That was not his premise. His premise was to change the hearts and minds of Germans that had turned Nazi and to bring them back to the true savior, right? Yeah. Even if they were holding a gun at you. Right. And he did that, and one of the scenes he's like, everybody let's calm down. Let's not be shooting anybody. And he confronts this one guy, this one soldier, and he's like, you can shoot me. Sure. But I know where I'm going. I know what's going to happen. Yep. But, you need to know that too. And I just thought that was such a really cool thing because you start understanding the heart of Bonhoeffer in that moment.
Well, and I didn't realize how many times he had escaped Germany. Mm-hmm. So he was, and the confessing church sent him to kind of be that voice, that kindling, right, within Europe to go to other neighboring countries to go get them on board so we can stop Hitler. Right. And he chose to keep coming back. Yeah. And people were like, dude, just go. You can have a family, a life. Don't come back here. You will be arrested. Yeah. There's a target clearly on your back.
His mission was bigger than that, though.
Yeah. Pretty incredible. Yeah, it's a pretty incredible story.
That he was able to do that.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about some of the modern relevance of this movie to us. The parallels of Bonhoeffer being challenged in Christianity, being challenged in his time. It kind of leads us into some of those thoughts now. We mentioned those earlier, but one of the big ones was the temptation that we have sometimes in our culture to align with political statements because they sound like us in some ways. Yeah, and that was one of the things that they brought up in the book is that Hitler for in the beginning sounded a lot like things that people really wanted to have happen in the country, right? Yeah. They were financially destroyed from
German
World War
I. Yeah, wrecked.
They were having issues with not being able to trade with other people in the world. They were starving, all this other stuff, and then the Jews are showing up. At least that's what they became the scapegoat. Right. But it's one of those things, and watching that parallel happen within our culture, right? Sure. That we can easily flip that switch in our own thinking when we're talking about immigrants and all these things that happen within our culture. We've got to be careful as Christians, not to flip that switch to the point where they did, where they just buy into all of it, right? Just because let's come up with some solution, even it may not be the right one. Right. Let's come up with some solution, and buying into a leader that may speak to some of those things just because it sounds good, right? Yeah. I think that's so important because we've mentioned before on the show that we've got to be careful with our nationalism. Nationalism is a really an infectious, disease that can get a hold of. Yeah, it's enticing. It's temptation to say, we talk about it now. It's interesting, Christians make America great and all this other stuff. Wonderful ideas.
Yeah.
Where we are, and as long as we keep them in the right perspective,
absolutely
good idea. But when we start moving in the direction that they were, where we're willing to sacrifice anything for the sake of, I think we're moving in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
I mean, where was the people that said, hey, you know what? The Bible's the Bible. We can't rewrite it. I was looking online after that movie, trying to find the Nazi Bible, trying to find readings of it. And in there, they're like, he added 2 more commandments. He made it more Aryan.
Yep.
So it's 12 commandments instead of 10. And then he took out any Jewish references.
Right.
I'm like, but
how do you do that?
Yeah. How do you do that? Because all the apostles were Jewish. Mark was Greek, but you have mostly Jewish apostles that were leading the church. The church was started by Jews. There's just a lot of things you can't take out of there.
Yeah,
and
Jesus becomes this blonde-haired, blue-eye, Armenian.
Kind of like the Malibu Jesus that sometimes people have in their church picture. Very much like that. But, they started just giving it up one after another. Like, hey, okay, fine, we'll let that go because the country's moving in a better direction. Mm-hmm. We're making money and moving in that direction.
So can I insert?
Yeah.
So right now in northern Michigan, Bayview is hosting. Brian McLaren will be coming here. This guy is everything you're talking about. Let's doubt the inerrancy of the word. Let's rewrite stuff. He was like one of the founders of the movement with Rob Bell and that whole bunch of stuff. He's coming to northern Michigan. He's coming to Bayview this summer.
Great.
I would say he would be on track with that type of thinking.
Yeah.
No,
So
I think you're
warning.
Yeah.
Yeah, when
Red
I think
flag,
there's,
big time.
I was thinking about that, PG, of just it seems to me, and I want to be fair, but it does seem to me that, in my past, I was hanging around with a lot of Christians who kind of were in middle of the road to left theologically, forget about political. And there was this sense of, the story usually is, again, I want to be fair, but I think this is true. Upper middle class, white people, lots of education. And so there's this, and there seems to be this sense of, I was hurt somehow by a church figure, a church, whatever, some sort of Christian institution. So I align myself culturally with Christianity, except it's always I'm a Christian, but, and then it's proceeds to be verbal spousal abuse of Christ bride, right? I'm a Christian, but I hate the way the church has treated X, Y, and Z people. And so what's always been interesting for me is just asking the question of, what would you have the church do differently that they've done? Certainly the church hasn't done everything perfectly in caring for people the least of ease, but what do you want them to change?
Right.
And in my interaction, they aren't willing to answer the question because they know it's going to go against orthodox belief in, marriage, human sexuality, abortion, whatever it is, right? And so it's those hot button topics that, again, I think we have to be gracious with. I do, but I do think there can be zero compromise in the sense of like, who is Jesus, Brian McLaren? Who is he?
Right.
What is, when he makes the claim that Jesus is exclusively the way to the Father, what does that mean, Mr. McLaren? And that's where I think that Christians have to be ready with those questions, because it can become this long diatribe and you don't know where the forest is for the trees, as far as the argument goes. And so I think having really good, well thought out, simple, one-line answers of going, just tell me who Jesus is. What is he?
Yeah.
Who is he? And I think that's the truth. And certainly, thinking about the parallels with the German church and the confessing church, they couldn't answer. Those German churches, it was just, look, we've got our boy here and Hitler, and he's going to make
everything better
for us. That's been so hard.
Make German great again.
Right. Yeah. And so I think there's, I remember with John DeMoose, right? He was sitting here and he was talking to us and about, just Christians have to always align themselves with the kingdom of heaven first.
Right.
That's in the end, we have history that points to kingdoms falling and starting again, right? And I happen to believe America's worth saving. Like I'm in that camp, right? So I'm not cheering that on. But my ultimate kingdom is the kingdom of heaven, and it is not of this world. And so
Well, there's and the thing is, the premise of what we understand from the early church is that there is a rejection of the typical mindset that our identity is based in our culture.
Yeah.
And that is so far from the truth because, Peter says we are pilgrims in this land, and all of them rejected, really, in a sense, their Jewish heritage in a way. Christians rejected their idol worship paganism to come to the church.
Yeah.
So we're all, in a sense, called to reject those things that are part of our previous identity and culture to take on the new identity in Christ. And, when Paul says, we become new creations, in a sense, we're becoming a part of a new culture, a new identity, a new kingdom, a new mindset. And that is such a crucial part of it. And when you start trying to mix everything together or, make room for other things, compartmentalize your faith, then you're moving in the wrong direction. You're moving in a way that then begins to start, saying, well, I can be a part of this and this part, maybe not, just as long as it doesn't affect my bottom line or what I think is my security and foundation. And that's really what it comes down to is that when push comes to shove, are you willing to forsake it all to follow the kingdom? Or do you have to ask that question repeatedly?
Anytime in any argument in any subject, you take Christ out of it, you're on the wrong road already. You're going to end up in a wrong spot. Nationalism, without Christ involved, gets you in trouble. Right? But God, Genesis chapter 11, he creates nations. And you see him interacting with nations. And as long as Christ is at the center and the forefront, like our founding fathers intended to be, right? Then nationalism is okay because it's founded on the basis of Christ. But you take Jesus out, which we're living in a post, Christ society where we're taking Jesus and the gospel and the Bible out of everything, and then nationalism is headed on the wrong road.
Well, and then when like you said, when nationalism becomes our religion, and not the place we live, and raise our families and have security.
But as Ted and you both, Alex, I want to live in a nation where Christ is the forefront, and I want to, and then all the laws are based on him, and how we conduct ourselves is based on him. And I don't want to be the Netherlands. There's a difference. Our nation should be different because it's based on Christ.
Well, and you can see those nations that fall, they fall, right? And so again, and not to say that America's not capable of that, but I think there is that sense of just going, when you do have a foundation that is based in the Bible, that's a good foundation to stand upon.
Well, we've got to get back. If you look at the list of things that are happening within our nation, I could not believe last week the Congress was having a debate on should transgender women have the ability to use women's bathrooms in Congress. All the things that we're going through right now.
Yeah, we're paying those people a lot of money to have that conversation.
Yeah, I know. And they're spending a lot of time having conversations of what bathrooms they're going to use. That's where we're at in America right now. We're in America right now where people are praising a guy who murdered an executive of United Healthcare.
Elizabeth Warren, senator, is saying, listen, you push a person so far, and that's what you're going to get. She just gave the okay that if you feel like you're being oppressed, kill people.
So, our country, we definitely need to have Jesus be in control. And we're fighting so much evil. It may not be to the extent that we saw in Nazi Germany, but we're finding things like that happening. And, if Christians just sit back and go, well, we'll just, that was just a one-off. We'll just let that go, whatever. No, those are things we need to start speaking out against. We need to start saying, listen, that is not appropriate. You don't get the opportunity to shoot somebody just because you have this idea and impression of what they've done. Those kind of things are happening more and more. And, of course, the whole transgender thing's an issue. The list goes on and on and on and on. And, Christians, I think we got to be a louder voice, kind of like what the preacher said when he said, when they came for the Christians or the Jews, I didn't say anything because I'm not Jewish. When they come for the American ideal of what we founded this nation on, and we're not saying anything, silence is just as bad as evil. And so if we stay silent and we're not saying things about this, then we're putting ourselves in that position, and we have no one to blame but ourselves.
So you guys correct me on the quote, but basically, all evil needs to do is have good people say nothing.
That's the quote. Oh, yeah. And that's basically what they said in the movie was that one of the pastors said, silence is just as bad as evil is what I think Bonhoeffer said. And that's so true. When we know the truth and we're not saying anything about it because either we think somebody else is going to take care of it or the pastor of the pulpit is going to say something, or whatever else, then we're not really helping out the situation.
Yeah, when one of the scenes that really stuck to me was when Bonhoeffer's meeting with pastors, and he's meeting with Winston Churchill's guy. So it's like his pastor dude, right? And so sound really smart, pastor dude.
Pastor dude, yeah, it's a real theological term.
He's meeting with him, and he says the Churchill's pastor dude says, he says, the church is to preach the gospel and not to get involved in this,
right? Essentially,
and that's why Winston Churchill and they won't, jump in, and that was Bonhoeffer's statement of like, to do nothing,
right,
is to do something, and man, I think that there are so many parallels for that for us today,
and I think that
it is the the thing at the end of the movie they shared in 2024 was on record the highest amount of hate crimes against Jewish people.
Yeah, anti-Semitism has grown.
Since World War II, and you're thinking, wait a minute, why aren't we talking about that more? And I think as evangelical Christians, we aren't surprised by that, right? Because we just know the story, and the Jewish folks are a target.
And the thing that is just blows my mind is like there was a reporter that works for Blaze that was in Canada. He's one of their Canadian reporters, and he was filming a protest by people that were pro-Palestinian.
Yeah.
And he was just there filming it and asking questions, not really doing anything. He got arrested for causing a ruckus when they were screaming about "Let's kill the Jews." And so that's the culture mindset that we have, and that's in Canada, but it is in America as well.
It's in just about every
college campus
in America.
So I mean, we are seeing this happen even today, and all it's going to take is some freak of nature out there, somebody that has a little bit too much power to start pushing the ball down the way a little bit further towards what we saw in Nazi Germany, where we start taking property. We start saying you can't have a synagogue, you can't do this, you can't do that. We're not. I mean, I hate to say it, but we're not that far from it when we're already letting college students do this.
Shut down universities.
Yeah, shut down universities over that protest. Sure. So it's something that we got to do. In Bonhoeffer, his last overall statement is this idea of costly grace, which I think was so pivotal in understanding that premise is that, sometimes grace is not just us loving everybody, but there is sometimes a cost that we don't always factor in.
Yep.
And that's something that we got to think about, that there is a part of it where Jesus does say, take up your cross and follow me. And just because, you live in the world and you think that, well, the world's going to just hang out with you.
Right.
Jesus said, they hated me, they're going to hate you. They came after me, they're going to come after you. Sometimes at that point, the gospel does cause that problem. So costly grace is an issue. It's going to be something I have to consider and think about. But anyways, bottom line, the movie was good.
Yeah, it was a great movie.
It's a thinker's movie.
Absolutely.
I would encourage you not to go there and think that you're going to be having a Star Wars moment.
No, it's not the Valkyrie.
It's not Valkyrie at all. That's what I think my son was thinking when he was going. He's like, going to be like Valkyrie.
Well, and I mean, I think again for Christians, we want good Christian content to consume.
Yeah.
And so I would encourage the more podcast folks and Harbor Lighters and whoever's hearing this to go see the movie.
Yeah.
Go see it, support it, tell people about it. I was thinking, once that thing's available, we should show it here on a Wednesday night, PG, and
sure, absolutely.
We could have a class where we read the cost of discipleship or do
Wrestle
life together.
Or something.
So I taught a discipleship class here at Harbor Light Christian School for years and years and years, and I had the radio version of what you guys are talking about, and I'd have the students listen to it, and it was a lot of fun. I had my own family listen to it.
Yeah,
that's super
great.
Cool.
Yeah, great thing.
The only things, I mean, if we're going to talk about anything that probably some people would be shocked by is that they did drink beer and they did smoke.
Yep.
In the movie,
they're Lutherans.
Pretty much, pretty much.
And it's
common thing.
What is it? The 40s too.
Yeah. So
who didn't smoke in the 40s?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I went to a Lutheran ministry. It was based on the guy was a Lutheran that was the head of this thing. I went to their board meeting.
Yeah.
And was at a restaurant, and there was tall beers around the entire table.
Sure, everybody.
Like, oh my gosh!
I grew up in a Lutheran church. I don't remember that though. I'm sure people drank beer, but
it doesn't bother me.
Yeah. This was at the ministry's board meeting.
I mean, they're German.
Nobody got drunk or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, they don't. I mean, it was just funny to watch that because I think some Christians that would go, especially think it was from Angel Studios, that put out Chosen.
Sure.
You're like, oh my gosh, what's happening here?
I think there was a swear word in there too.
Yeah.
I think there was. I mean, it was
appropriate.
Right, and it's a World War II movie that I think we saw one person get shot. So are you, parents, are
don't
you
take your
your
kids,
6-year-old? Probably not, but it's, man, how do you tell the story of World War II?
How do you read the Old Testament?
Right.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, it's.
But I wholeheartedly throw my hat in the ring to support it. I think it's a great movie. And you want more stuff like that, you got to support it.
Yeah.
Right. So throw your money at it. Go see it. Tell the movie theater you want more of this stuff. All that stuff's good. So. And
I don't know how they got the producer that produced Elf to do this movie.
I know.
The Will Ferrell movie.
Isn't that crazy?
That's the guy that produced this movie. Is the guy that did Elf.
Yeah, he did something else too.
I'm waiting for Will Ferrell to show up at some point. I'm like, is he going to pop out as an extra or something? Will Ferrell, but he didn't.
He's like, my 2 Christmas movies, Elf and Bonhoeffer.
That's right. All right. Well, we're going to get ready to go into Babylon B News. So we'll take a break and be right back.
All through the house, not a single creature was stirring, not even a mouse. Jesus Christ was born this day. He's asleep, and Mary is not happy when he's awake. More podcasts will be right back.
This is Babylon B News. I'm Jazz McHale reporting. Upland, California. In a lucrative product placement deal, Faith Currents Community Church prominently featured several doTERRA essential oils at several key moments during its annual nativity play, sources confirmed Monday. Rather than bringing gold, frankincense, and myrrh, the Magi gifted doTERRA starter kits, special peppermint blends, and a premium oil diffuser to help with baby Jesus' colic. The Magi took several minutes to conspicuously display the products and describe them in great detail for the audience while presenting them to the young Savior. And this here is what every young Messiah needs: a full set of doTERRA essential oils, also available for purchase in the lobby for just $29.99. One of the Magi said excitedly, holding up a premium starter kit as the church's camera crew zoomed in to give the crowd a good look. I never leave for a historic journey from the Far East without one. Another scene had the shepherds calming their fussy sheep with an essential oil diffuser and featured the angels singing about several exciting new essential oil blends entitled Peace and Goodwill, both of which were also available for purchase in the church's foyer after the performance. On earth, peace, goodwill toward men. And if you really want peace and goodwill, you'll upgrade to our special diffuser pack so you can have true joy this holiday season all throughout your home, one angel said. During the customary altar call invitation at the end of the show, Pastor Lucas's wife, Jenna, reportedly spent 15 minutes pleading with the crowd to start their own doTERRA business and take control of your lives as the choir sang, Jesus, I Come. According to sources within the church, several prominent essential oil brands were involved in a tight bidding war for the featured spot in the performance, with doTERRA's rumored bid of $1.3 million narrowly beating out a competitive offer from a Young Living rep at the church. This is Babylon B News. I'm Jazz McHale reporting. Back to more podcast.
Wow. Can you imagine that? I mean, I remember maybe not even a year or two ago here at Harbor Light, we had a lot of ladies into Young Living and doTERRA because my wife was like giddy when she started finding out that all these women existed here.
What's Young Living again?
It's the essential oil stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, essential oils.
It was essential oil, and what was the vitamin company that was called?
I don't know.
Yeah.
doTERRA, though, is the competitor of Young Living. And,
I like essential oils.
I do too.
They smell fine.
You know what we do is we have one of those vacuum cleaners with the water, the rainbow vac.
Okay.
And you can put essential oils in there while you're vacuuming.
That
makes sense. It smells good.
Great.
Yeah, it smells good.
Yep. It's not like too much usually.
No.
And yeah, it's way better than like bleach, or scent or something.
Well, and it makes the house, smell like whatever you're putting in there, Apparently, I need to get peace and goodwill.
It's not going to help you lose 85 pounds.
No.
Right.
I remember the women slapping that stuff on everything. Like, you got a headache? Here, I got this. You got feet pain? Here you go. Put this peppermint oil. You got your kids got RSV. Put this peppermint oil in their nose and they'll be better. Yeah, it was bad. All right. Well, we're going to take an ID break, come back with Bible trivia. Pastor Gary, you have a question for us?
I do.
All right. I'm looking forward to that, and we'll be right back.
Is the size of your heart 2 sizes too small? I think you need a healthy dose of more podcast. We have been helping Grinches for years get better. Be right back.
Bible trivia, Pastor Gary.
Yes.
This is like epic because we've had to come up with and
Really?
questions.
How
like
have that been?
Oh, we're having a good time.
Did we give away the football helmet?
We have not. We waited for you to come back. It's
Really?
It's an epic gift. We don't
It's
want to
the
just give it
Christmas
away.
miracle.
Yeah,
Okay.
we also don't want to give it away. And people. I've had people actually stand outside my window because I have it in my window at the office, trying to figure out how that thing works.
Right.
I'm like, it's magic.
It's
Christmas.
good,
It's
isn't
a
it?
lion's miracle.
Yeah.
That's what that is. So, Pastor Gary, if they want to send their question in to us to be a part of that awesome present that is the lion's floating helmet, you can send it to us.
Floating and rotating.
And rotating. And you can send it to us, and we'll put it in the Magic
And
Wilson
illuminated.
Insurance. That has the LED lights on it. It is magic, I'm just going to say. And you can send it to the Wilson Insurance Magic Hat where all the dreams come true, and we'll put your name in there, and we'll draw.
Yep.
It's probably coming up here. We're going to have a drawing here soon.
We should.
Yeah.
Let's move it. Let's move it forward so that they can get it before Christmas.
Yeah,
Can we
it
do
should be a
that?
Christmas present.
And for an additional cost, we'll wrap it for you.
Oh, okay.
Put it in $10. Put it in a bag.
Just make sure you check the box. This is a gift.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
And you can send it to HarborLightBibleTrivia@gmail.com, HarborLightBibleTrivia@gmail.com, all lowercase. And Pastor Gary, what is the question?
All right. Well, Pastor Alex has been doing a great job setting up things for this weekend. We're in the series called Rejoice, and we're taking a look at Luke chapter 1 and kind of bleeding over into Luke chapter 2 a little bit. But Luke chapter 1, verse 35, it says that the Holy Spirit, and I'm going to be speaking about Holy Spirit this weekend.
This week, yeah.
And so we're going to be talking about his involvement in the Christmas story, in the birth of Jesus. And so in verse 35, the angel says to Mary that the Spirit is going to overshadow her. What does the word overshadow mean?
Ooh, that's a good one.
That's kind of a big one.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to be able to maybe even break it down a little bit this weekend. So
Yeah.
if you come to church and listen to the service, you will probably be able to snag the answer
Sweet.
from that time. But
That's one more reason to come to church.
We're going to have people sending in Greek words that they don't even never read before. I found this on the internet. There's a Greek word for that.
well, it is a little, it's not just going to be just a little trivia, find
Yeah,
a certain
yeah, yeah,
word.
yeah.
Now you got to
Yeah.
kind of come up with some
Sure.
stuff there.
Right.
Which I think is one of the things that I enjoy about being a pastor and sharing the word is digging in deeper on this stuff. So what does the word overshadow mean in Luke 1:35 when the angel says to Mary that the Spirit's going to overshadow her?
That's going to be
Cool.
good. That's going to be good. And
Yeah.
I have been promising them for the last 2 weeks that you're coming back. You're going to wrap this whole thing up in a nice little bow.
Yeah, so
it's a lot of-
I get it going
Yeah.
this weekend and next weekend on the 22nd
Yeah.
during the celebration.
That's right, Christmas
the
celebration,
celebration.
rejoice.
huge expectations.
Yeah,
It's gonna
I'm
be
going to be
awesome.
doing the
Right.
everlasting kingdom. So,
Right.
and that's kind of taken from actually when Jesus goes to get dedicated. Simeon holds the baby and says, "This is the answer to everything we're looking for."
That's
well,
awesome.
it put in football terms, it's kind of like we've had the quarterback on injured roster, and so they're putting the second stringer.
No.
So now we're going to get the real quarterback to play the game all the way.
I love listening to you speak. You are
We'll get a
articulate
winner.
and thought provoking and challenging at the same time. So
Well,
We
I
got,
just want to say
we
thank
got
you.
great preachers.
We'll
in
get,
our life.
we'll get it there.
Yeah, people love it when you get a chance to share.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to come back and get the cookies down there on the bottom shelf.
Oh, yeah, but we're talking about cookies.
We have staff Christmas party this weekend.
We have
Yeah,
staff
we
Christmas
do.
party this Sunday, and then also though the cookies that are coming for
Oh yeah,
Christmas Eve. I've been hearing about them.
Have you?
Oh my gosh!
Can I set up something a little bit
Yeah.
for we're super excited. Pastor Ted and I have been working closely on our Christmas Eve service,
Yeah.
and that's going to be a big push for us to raise money for the homeless shelter,
Yes.
Yes.
the Nehemiah Project.
Yeah.
So I'm challenging everybody. I'll start doing it this weekend. Let's make a legacy gift on
Yeah.
Christmas Eve. Let's do something
Yeah.
that because Harbor Light has bought the first 2 homeless shelter
That's true.
buildings
That's very
in
true.
Petoskey. So let's go
Yeah.
for the third. Let's go crazy.
Let's do it.
Maybe get a little bit less of a gift for yourself this year. Pastor
Yeah.
Alex said give it to the homeless shelter. That would be great.
I've already got all my
okay.
gifts, so I have to.
You already got them too?
Yeah. so
Have
I
you
can-
wrapped them for yourself?
I have not. I just opened the box and there it is. Yeah, so it's going to be good. I'm really excited about it, and I hear that we're going to be having a special.
we have
Man-
multiple specials.
We
going
have
on.
so many
Manheim
specials.
Steamrollers is going
That's
to be here.
on the at
Yeah.
Christmas at Harbor Light includes 2 major things: our Christmas celebration, which will be
Yeah.
this 22nd,
Yep.
and then our Christmas Eve services.
It's gonna be
which
good.
are
and
6
both of
and
them are
7:30.
going to be home runs.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it's going to be some bangers going
Oh,
on there.
yeah.
You be ready.
The 22nd, we're gonna sing all kinds of Christmas carols, and it's gonna be great.
I think
we
it's
have
gonna
a
be-
big Christmas.
I'm really
opener.
hoping that my granddaughter gets to do a back
Yeah,
handspring.
I think that's happening.
She's,
Yeah,
she's
I
working
think
on
that's
it.
part
Yeah,
of the
well,
deal.
then she just won an award.
She got #1 in the floor routine down in Grand Rapids.
Yeah, that's a big
among
deal.
her age
awesome.
group.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. When
job,
you're in
Tampa.
competition with so many people in the state, right? That's a statewide thing.
Yeah, it was huge.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's a huge thing. So, if you see her, give her a little high five.
And I think there's a little Wesley girl that's gonna.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yep. So
All
they're
right.
gonna.
They were
Hopefully, they're
practicing
gonna do
last
this.
weekend.
Yeah.
Last Sunday.
I'm looking forward to it.
gonna be great.
I'm looking forward to it. Well, that's all going to happen here. Be ready. The question, what does the word overshadow mean? And let us know what you think. You can send it to harborlightbibletrivia@gmail.com, harborlightbibletrivia@gmail.com, all lowercase. And we'll put your name in the magic hat for Wilson Insurance, where all the dreams come true. And we're going to be doing a drawing at some point this month for the Magic Lions helmet. I'm telling you, man, I have my own. Pastor Gary got me one, and I'm telling you, that thing, people are like, just stand there and look at it.
And we got one for our mutual buddy, Sean Meyer.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, got one for and I've probably gotten at least 2 phone calls from him since I gave it to him.
Yeah.
Saying this is the best thing I have in my man cave.
Yeah, it is so cool.
It's sweet.
It's weird.
Because
you
you
have
off
to,
a little light. So
there's a light on the bottom,
behind
and
it,
it's real shiny.
Yeah.
And you have to use this little special tool to make sure you get the gap for the magnet.
Oh, okay.
But what's funny is when we played Green Bay, I made a video of it and sent it to this Facebook page that I'm part of, and it got so many dang hits because people are like, where'd you get that from? And all this other stuff. I'm like, I don't know.
Isn't that crazy? I went to Florida and bought that at the, what's that home shopping network?
Yeah.
There's a store that if things don't get sold on the show, they go
No
to the
way.
store.
Really?
And I bought 5 Lions helmets.
That is so cool.
At the home shopping network, and then
Awesome.
had to have them shipped home.
That is so
Wow.
cool. Yeah.
I
I'm
didn't know
surprised
that
they didn't
store
get
exists.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Sweet.
I need to go to that store.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mom would love that store. She bought so much stuff from the Home Shop Network over there.
man.
And the price is pretty good. I
Really?
immediately walked in and there was a big display, the jewelry display.
Yeah.
And I found my wife a super sparkly
Sweet.
diamond ring, and I'm like, I'm gonna go for it. I didn't even know how much it cost yet. And then they pulled it out, and it was like $13.
Oh, that is so
But
cool.
unfortunately, it wasn't her size, and so I didn't.
Well,
get
you
together,
know.
but
Hey, let
Do
me-
you guys
Oh,
do you
go
guys
ahead.
ever watch the Home Shopping Network?
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, I do. I do. I'm going to be honest with you. I do.
I seasonally do. I usually watch it at Christmas time.
yeah.
And I like. So do you know, this is so embarrassing. David Benepold. Do you know that guy?
I don't know by name, no, but I probably know who you're talking
He's
about.
the
yeah.
food guy.
Oh, yeah.
And he always
yeah.
does the little dances. And
Yep, yep.
Like, oh my gosh. So my family, the Polly's family, always talks about what David's up to and what's he's
Oh
selling.
yeah, it's fun to watch, and then they're on like all the time. You know?
It is. Salesmanship is an art, and they do it.
Yeah, and you have to know what you're selling.
Right.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I think that
I've never bought anything off of it, but it is.
let me just tell you this:
the
this
food
is
stuff is fun.
my greatest
The way
experience
they
right
cut-
now.
They cut a piece of cake, and it's like,
real slow.
Yeah,
Looks beautiful, and it's not going to ship that
why
way.
am I watching?
We will ship you the exact same cake in the box. By the time it gets to you, it's going to be hard as a rock, but
Yeah,
it's going to be good.
yeah. It looks like a thin layer of plastic is over it, and
No, okay, so you know Wayfair, right? You know Wayfair.
Yeah.
Okay, so I thought this year I bought my wife a vanity for her to do makeup and stuff.
Oh,
It's
nice.
got a mirror with the lights and everything.
Yep.
And so it comes in the box, and I'm like, oh, okay, so this is you got to put
You
it
gotta
together a
build
little
it,
bit, yeah. I'm like 3 days into it now, trying to figure out the instructions and trying to get all the pieces in the right place so that it works the way it's supposed to work.
yeah.
And my wife's like, why is it taking so long? I'm like, here, look at these instructions, and you tell me why it's taking me 3 days to put this thing together. And I'm like sitting there like a scientist trying to, like you got to
Yeah.
mix this screw with this, and you
Yeah,
don't do
yeah.
the other screw because it's going to be a problem. So Wayfair is not what I need. Wayfair is never going to be coming to my house again. I'm going to get this thing together, and that's it. All right, well, we're going to take an ID break, come right back, and we're going to get into Bible talk.
If you have a hard time pronouncing the word team, you join the club. If you also have problems remembering that Christmas means that Christ should be the center of your holiday planning, then keep listening to more podcast.
All right. Well, today on Bible Talk, we will start looking into the Christmas story. So this Christmas, our sermon series focused on an overlooked characters in the story. The Word, the foundation of creation and redemption, Mary, whose faith inspires us to trust God, and the Holy Spirit working behind the scenes to fulfill God's plan, and the kingdom of God ushered in through Jesus' birth. These elements deepen our understanding of Christmas, showing it is not just an historical event, but a message of transformation. Join us as we uncover the richness of these themes in the Christmas story today.
And we're getting ready to go on week 3.
Yeah.
Holy Spirit.
Holy
Pastor Gary is
Spirit.
going to deal with that. So far, we talked about the Word and Mary.
Correct.
And yeah, it was a really good time. Really good time.
Yeah. So why do you think that God often uses unlikely people like Mary to fulfill his plan? It's a question that, I think a lot of us have asked. And, why are we not using kings and,
wouldn't that be easy?
Powerful people.
Right. People that are already established, right?
Yep. Why are they unlikely?
I think it comes down to, what we mentioned on last Sunday is that, God loves to work through the weak and unnoticed. Because his power and glory are made real and obvious. And I think that's really the cool thing about Mary's story is that I mentioned that there's nothing about her that would say, that's the girl.
Right.
I'm going to put, and I even mentioned, because being in this football mindset, and I brought this out, God never uses first stringers. He just does not. He does not like using first stringers. He always uses the ones that are on the bench, the most unlikely people to do this stuff. And it's because he demonstrates his power. And the thing that makes Mary so special out of everybody was her reaction, her willingness to what God called her.
Sure.
To. And I think that's the crucial part that we hopefully pulled away from Mary's story.
Yeah.
Is that, and I mentioned this over and over again in the message, what God's looking for is a 3-letter word, yes. That's what he's looking for in all these situations. And when you say yes, God then can do some amazing things because, your ability is not that important to him. It's the availability that you have to his call.
Amen.
And my abilities, I mentioned this, I don't know if it's the first service, second service. There's no reason why I should be standing in that pulpit because me as Alex Norton, I don't really feel like I have that ability, being an introvert, somebody that doesn't like to be in front of crowds. I told him, I was joking around. I said, people scare me to stand up there and talk to you. You're all looking at me the whole time. I'm like, this is crazy. There's no reason why in a normal situation I would ever been there unless it was for God saying, I want you. And I made myself available to do whatever it was. Yeah.
Don't you think that there's something that's like super consistent with God's character too? Just that, was it Dallas Willard who talked about the upside down kingdom?
Yeah.
And so
he's a good author.
Right. Yeah. So the idea of, everything that we would expect from like an earthly king, Jesus does the opposite, or, the first shall be last, or the Beatitudes, right? Blessed are the, and, I think there's just something super consistent of God using the unlikely.
Right. Yeah. The Beatitudes are the best because it's not really the best pep talk, right?
No.
It's like, blessed are you if you have this problem. Blessed are you if you're not going to meet. Yeah. It's like, God himself lets us know what his itinerary is and what he looks for in the players that he puts out on the field. And, over and over again, it's just amazing to me because when you look at scripture, the big stories that we highlight and say, these guys are amazing, like Moses. I mentioned on Sunday, Moses is a stutterer.
Right.
We can use our imagination to figure that one out. The guy probably took a long time for him to do a speech, and yet God's the one that puts him in the place of leadership of Israel. David, even his own dad didn't think he had any potential, and yet that's who God used to be king. And I mentioned Gideon, was scared of his own shadow, and yet God calls him a mighty warrior. Are you kidding me?
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So over and over again, we're in good company with us, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I find a ton of comfort in that. When we look at the characters throughout the Bible, I use that. The Bible's just full of screwballs that God uses in incredible ways.
Yeah,
so
definitely,
it's really nice that I get to be a part of that. Thinking about the angel Gabriel's message to Mary. How does Mary's response to that message challenge our own faith in difficult situations?
Well, we talked a lot about disruption, didn't we, last week? And disruption is such a major part of the human condition. We get disrupted by so many things in life. We get disrupted by situations where I mentioned, family members have issues, we get disrupted and we have to deal with that. Disruption is a major part of it. But what's interesting is how Mary dealt with the disruption, I think is key for her. Where she saw that it was obviously going to be a big factor in her life, right? Becoming a pregnant woman with no husband involved, walking around 9 months pregnant, eventually going to, have people ask questions. That's kind of a little side joke, but, she just wanted to be a normal run-of-the-mill wife. That was the whole point of it. She was from Nazareth. A small community, it's kind of like a Mayberry. There's nobody really having any grandiose ideas. And yet she committed to this and she says, yes, I want to do this. But in the disruption, I think what we find in our faith is that God then shows up and shows us how he is going to be with us through the process, that he is going to deal with all the unanswered things. And that was the other thing that we talked about too, is that there's nothing wrong with us asking questions in the midst of a disruption and saying, God, should this be happening, or is this going to happen, or what's going on here? Because Mary did.
Yeah.
Mary's like, how is this possible? That I'm a virgin. You're going to have me have a child. I mean, this doesn't make any sense. And I mean, the dialogue in the Bible is really short. But let's put ourselves there in the emotional, dialogue we would have. I mean, I don't think we would be like, yeah, it sounds cool, let's do it.
Right.
It's short, but it was very pregnant with lots of letters.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, very, very pregnant.
I like your statement there that this disruption, which I'll probably talk a little bit about this weekend, but it wasn't just a disruption for Mary. This was a derailment.
Oh yeah,
this was a derailment from what she had kind of thought her life was going to turn out like.
Huge, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, because we know that at least in that time, even in the Jewish culture, if you were pregnant without having a husband, you could get stoned or banished, or you lose your whole life. That was something that she was saying yes to. I mean, she was saying yes to the fact that she didn't even know if Joseph was going to be on board with this whole thing. And in fact, in Matthew 1, we find out that Joseph was like, I'm going to divorce her quietly and kind of move on before I have to deal with any of this. So, I mean, there's a lot going on there. And yet she still, in the disruption derailment, she says yes. And I think that's a huge faith thing that we can pull from her, more so than the rest of us. I mean, for me, I've had some big questions, obviously, moving through life, my own faith journey. But this is like, throw everything out the window kind of, decision. Like, am I going to just kind of follow through with this? And granted, you could say, well, she had an angel show up, right? Yeah. Yeah, she had an angel show up, and, that maybe persuaded her. Yeah, that helps a little bit. But at the same time, I mean, still, I'd be kind of a little bit nervous about the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, again, I find so much comfort in that fact that Mary does ask the questions. She does have her reservations, whatever they are, and that's such an easy application for my own life, and I think for the lives of a lot of other people. God calls you something, calls you to something. It doesn't remove your humanity, right? It doesn't remove your, not just, put the coin in the slot and pull the handle. That just this is what makes sense, and I'm going to do it. But he doesn't. Yeah, he provides everything that you will need, even when you think you don't have enough. So,
well, and I think too with her life, I think what's interesting is that she somehow figured out in her young mind that true obedience is always going to cause sacrifice. It's always going to require sacrifice at some point. And it means that maybe not to the level that she has, but when God calls us into something, there has to be an initial response of moving forward towards that call. Yeah. You can't just stand back and go, okay, this is a good idea, and not accomplish anything. She moved forward in the sense that this is going to happen. I'm going to be a part of it. Let's move on to the next step. And I think that's something that a lot of times maybe in our own faith, we talk about this idea of faith and talk about this idea about following God. But, like we mentioned in the message, sometimes that disruption causes us to have to put our money where our mouth is, put our money where our assumed faith is. Yeah. And, are you willing to do that? I mean, and that's sometimes a tough thing, especially when you weigh it against all the other things in your life that are standards, static parts of your life that you just like, I have all of this assurance, with my job, my family, my relationships, everything that I'm doing in my career. What if God at some point says, no, I want to do this, and are you going to do it? And I think that sometimes is difficult, but for her, we can't devalue her decision because it was bigger than probably most of us ever dealt with. And she goes, yeah, let's do it. Let's make it happen. I think it's just huge. But
yeah, so one of the things that you talked about early on, Pastor Alex, was, just maybe the undervaluing of Mary from the church, that especially evangelical churches. And that's obviously in response to kind of this deification that, the Catholics have done with Mary. Can you talk a little more about that? Like why is it important to talk about Mary?
Well, she is, I think you're right. We sometimes in certain groups within the church, we deify her, put her to this position that she is. But what's interesting about the story is the story never gives us that assumption. Right. What we see more times than not is that she's a normal woman, just like us, that was dealing with all the same issues that we would deal with going into a heavy decision like that. And I think with that alone is something that we should step back and go, I want to have that kind of faith. And that's what the story does, at least for me, when I read it. It's like sometimes my faith is conditional. Sometimes my faith is based on certain criteria that need to be met or what I need to do. I'm not one of those kind of guys often. I'll be honest with you. I'm not one of those kind of guys often that says, okay, blind faith, I'm going to go for it. Yeah. I'm going to step out on the ledge and then hopefully there's going to be a bridge in front of me when I start moving forward. she, on the other hand, had this childlike faith. And I think we had a conversation about this, when Jesus said at one point, he said, you cannot be a part of the kingdom unless you have childlike faith. You're not going to have any idea what it is. And I think it's so interesting that she exemplifies all of that, right? I mean, she herself is just a young woman who didn't have a lot of life experiences, and yet she is willing to do this, and she had that childlike acceptance. Like, you say this is going to be good, I say it's going to be good, let's go for it. I'm going to do it. And how often do we move away from that? We can sort of get this mature mentality where we don't have that kind of faith anymore, right? We look for the conditions, what is plan B if plan A doesn't work, and all this other stuff. And how cool would it be if we started getting our mindset and our faith journey in that position that she had, where we're like, you know what, if you say this is a good thing,
right,
let's do it. I'm not going to ask any more questions. I'm not going to, you've answered all that I need to know, and I'm going to move forward. Yeah,
plan A, B, C, D, and G, and to Z is God's plan.
And she does that. I mean, she does. That's why she should be elevated, because she's one of the few people that is in Scripture that did it this way.
Right.
Because all the other people that we read about that God called into service, at some point they have many, many questions, and then sometimes they're like, I don't think I should do this.
Yeah, right.
I don't think I should make this happen. David, for all of his glory that we talk about in Scripture, just read the Psalms. There are many times where David's like he's not very confident in his relationship with God. He's not very confident in the fact that, God could use him in other ways. Sure, we read the stories about Goliath and read other stories about him being a great, righteous man, but there are moments in his life he admits himself that he was not willing to make those steps. Here, we never read that about Mary. Mary, from the moment that she hears about what needs to happen and gets past all the stuff that's going on, she has the assurance. She just is wholeheartedly connected with it.
Right.
Yeah. And, I love that song, Mary Did You Know? I think she knew more than we give her credit for. She's moving forward. So
that's right. She knew.
Yeah, she knew.
We don't have to sing the song. Mary knew.
Yeah. So it kind of gives us some ideas of what's some practical ways that we can take this and develop that kind of faith. I think, I try to get into a little bit within in the message. Obviously we don't have a lot of time to get into all the details, but I've said, and I hopefully they heard it on Sunday, you have to start developing that kind of response. It's a work in process. I mean, you have to develop those kind of responses, and it is based off of faith, but it is also based off the assurance that you've seen God work before, right? And I think even Mary had that that stuff in her mind. She knew that God had been with her people for generation after generation. I mean, she knew about the Red Sea. She knew about the prophecies. I mean, she would have known a lot of that stuff because it was common conversation within the culture. But she was ready to move in the interruption definitely when God called her to do it.
Yeah.
And I think you can get yourself, it's kind of like going to the gym. I mean, you start out with 10-pound weights and eventually you're up to whatever, I'm like 220 now. So, no, I'm not, I can't even lift 10 pounds. You get in there and you're like working out and eventually get to that point where you can do more.
Sure.
And I think that's what Mary is showing here, is that she is working herself up and eventually she bursts Jesus into the world. He's here. But I think that she worked on that for quite a while, for 30 years at least, working on this idea that I've brought the Savior into the world that was eventually going to have to do something that I don't want to see happen.
Yeah.
And that's all been working in her heart. And that's something that's important for us to begin to start considering for ourselves. And then, I also want people to start learning how to say yes. I think that's a hard thing.
Yep.
Not just saying yes, but, I think we like to add that part on there, but we need to start really allowing God to work on us to the point where the yes is quickly coming. It's not something that we have to really kind of consider.
Sure.
And I think that's a hard thing, but you can begin to start saying yes, especially when you have the plethora of information we have about God's character, about what he's always done, how faithful he always is. He says that about himself. He says, what I put in, he said it to Mary. He said, what God puts into place does not change. So, I mean, that's all important stuff, I think, when we look at Mary's life. So Mary, for me, is just an exciting character.
Yeah.
And I'll admit it, for many years, she's been that one little cute girl that sits there behind Jesus. So, angelic and, but that woman went through a whole lot to get to that point.
And I so appreciate that, right? Like, I think that just bringing a fresh perspective, because we talk about heroes of the faith all the time. And so putting Mary in there, I think just makes all the sense in the world of going, man, like the uncertainty of life for her.
Yeah.
That is such a crazy thing to consider. And looking at the historical stuff and just knowing all the ramifications of what it meant to be an unwed, pregnant teenage girl.
Yeah.
All that stuff's a really big deal. And I kept thinking about that. I think I've mentioned it before, but that, that famous John Winberg quote of, you can't spell faith without risk, and so Mary's willingness to say yes is just this giant step off the cliff of going, I'm saying yes, Lord. And it certainly could cost me everything.
I think the part B to this story would have been funny is, for 9 months,
right,
there was opportunity and temptation to really hit her faith hard.
Sure.
Because she's carrying this child.
Yeah.
And you can imagine going through all of that stuff that she was going through, to think to herself, was this a really good idea?
Sure.
And to have those kind of emotions, and yet we don't read about that. I don't know if it happened. I'm assuming it's not, because God really, he says she's highly favored. She, this woman's, a cut above the rest.
Yeah.
And, I would imagine during all of it, when people are asking questions like, Mary, let's just talk about this whole situation. Sure. Let's get this figured out. She never did. She never at any point said, maybe this wasn't one of my best ideas, but here I am now.
Yeah.
She held on to her faith. And I think that says a lot to us in the process of when God calls us to do something as well. I mean, when God puts us in something, there are going to be moments of question, and definitely the devil's going to be trying to really derail us and interrupt our move forward. But, you have to hold on to what God said. And I believe firmly that Mary held on to those first words from the angel.
Sure.
God said this is going to happen. Right. It's going to be the way he's always done it. God's going to be through all of this. He says that I'm the woman that's supposed to be doing this. So all that stuff, I'm going to hold on to that regardless of what people see, what people think, and what they don't know. And I think they kind of held her through. And it is something that we have to hold on to. I mean, when we're going through it, we're having to deal with a faith issue. Get in the Word, man. Start letting Holy Spirit speak to your heart. Start praying and letting God work on those details.
Absolutely.
Because it's going to happen. I mean, you're going to have to go through something sometimes when you're believing faith for God to do something.
Right.
Anyway, so that was week 2. And then week 3, Holy Spirit. It's going to be, Pentecostal service, right?
I hope so.
We need to get an organist for you that can just follow your preaching. Be ready for you. I mean, on a topic like that, you got to be ready.
I think that I like watching Stephen Furtick.
Yeah.
He's the kind of guy that would work good for.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I think I'm just too mellow. I don't grab the mic and just start walking around the room.
Sure.
And just shouting out these one-liners.
We just got to change your coffee.
Yeah.
We got to do something a little more caffeine.
I'm pretty much just having a conversation with the people.
Sure, that's right. Yeah. That's good though.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously people love it. I mean, they come and so it was good. So that's the end of Bible Talk. Thank you for being a part of the podcast. We got a lot of things to think about this week. Remember, answer that question so you can get the magic Lions helmet. I'm telling you, you're going to love it. You're going to put it on your mantle at your home.
Yep.
It's going to be the one thing that your wife says, hey, I like it. Put it up there. As opposed to a lot of other things that I try to put in my house.
Yeah.
Every time my wife goes away on a trip, I try to slide something in the house that she's never seen before. She finds it every time. And she's like, what is that doing here? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know where that came from.
Yeah.
All right, Pastor Gary, good to have you back.
Well, it's good to be back.
And good to have you back at the helm. And we've got a good time coming up. Christmas is exciting. I love Christmas.
It's the best.
Everywhere I go right now, there's lights up in the little towns and stuff, so it's a lot of fun. And then, of course, we got our blizzard.
I just want to brag on Pastor Ted that he's the man that we need at Harbor Light.
Yes, he is.
Leading us in our worship experience with the music. And he's got a heart for this, and he's excited.
Yeah.
I come up with some crazy ideas, and he's like, let's make that happen. Right? I just love that about you. And
I appreciate it,
so
thanks, Gary.
I'm looking forward to this. There's been times in the past where I didn't look forward to this season.
Like, oh no.
Yeah. But with Pastor Ted and his excitement and the people that come around him, right?
Yeah.
I love it because he's a magnet for people that want to be involved.
Yeah.
And I see in the next year, in a year and a half, that more musicians are going to be drawn to this place because of our authentic and passionate worship of Jesus and the expression of using their gift and their creativity to be able to do that. So
I'm
look forward to that in the next year and a half.
Yeah, that'd be good.
That's awesome.
It's good. The mashups are what are
They've been
exciting
fun.
to me. They're exciting to me.
I just have to say, it's that people either love or do not love Christmas carols. And I grew up
I think it's good.
old school, we're going to sing hymns, Christmas carols, right? So Christmas Eve was like, let's sing Silent Night and light a candle and go home. You know, but man, it's just been so fun to kind of think about that in a different way and find some cool resources that are different and also nod heavily at kind of the original. So you're not just tearing the Band-Aid off for people who love those Christmas carols.
I think it's fun though, because you don't really lead on at first, right? We're like into the intro and everybody's like, oh, I know this song. And you start singing and then all of a sudden, boom.
Right. What's been good, man?
Is that a Christmas song right there?
Yeah. No, it's good.
I like it.
Yeah, and Christmas carols are always a challenge because they tend to be a little more story song than a worship song. So we don't want to just tell the story. We want to worship the Lord, right? And so,
sometimes you should sing the Silent Night with the 27 verses in it. It'd be great.
Man.
I think,
I could do a whole podcast about Silent Night, man.
It goes on forever. I mean, we start in Genesis and we end, the Revelation. You know,
I know the whole story. We visit the Silent Night Chapel every year at Frankenmuth, and it's
have you gone to Frankenmuth yet?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, we did too. Yeah,
it's awesome, man.
I love it. Yeah,
it's a great way.
It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really
so
good.
fun.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week. And now we're sort of on a schedule. We'll probably have some out time for Christmas. Just be watching. I know Daniel Ehrman usually posts for us on multimedia when a podcast is up. I try to post on mine.
Yeah.
But just be watching. Do
we do the podcast next week, you think?
What is next week?
It's the week before Christmas. I bet you we do it.
Yeah, we should do a Christmas special.
That would be the one. Let's give away the helmet.
Let's give away the helmet on that day.
Christmas special next week.
Yeah. We're going to have Lawrence Welk in the studio. We're going to have Bing Crosby.
And two.
We're going to just be ready. I'm just saying, we're going to pull out the stops. I have a very large budget right now.
I liked all the Christmas bumpers. Those were awesome.
Those are Christmas bumpers.
Yeah.
We're going to have a good time. Yeah,
Christmas
it's going to be Christmas party.
Yeah.
The Christmas special on the podcast.
Christmas specials. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we'll have Pastor Gary read the night before Christmas.
Yeah.
Just to get everybody ready to go. Okay. Yeah. And it'll be good, and we'll
sing
do your best golf voice as we do that night before Christmas.
That'd be great.
So that parents can say,
"Hello, folks."
That's right. Yeah.
Jim Nance here.
And,
that's it. It's Jim Nance.
Jim Nance is the one. Yeah, this is it. And so we're gonna have Jim Nance reading the night before
Jim
Christmas.
Jim Nance reads Christmas.
It's gonna be good.
That's gonna be something.
Just be ready. All right, we'll be back with you next week. Talk to you later.
We want you to know, find, discover, change with us. More podcast ending transmission. Now.